History is full of stories where human destinies intertwine with great events, leaving a lasting mark on generations. This narrative takes us back in time, unveiling dramatic moments filled with hope, despair, and the struggle for survival. Before you is a story that will make you reflect on resilience, the power of love, and the difficult choices that shape the future. Through the eyes of its characters, you will witness how courage and determination can overcome even the darkest times. As the past unfolds, the echoes of its lessons remind us that history is not just a collection of events, but a mirror reflecting our own struggles, dreams, and triumphs. Just a few months after ascending to the throne as Queen of Poland, Barbara met her demise with her most unsettling symptom concealed from view. Confined to her bed, she started suffering from peculiar, inexplicable maladies that baffled everyone. What began as minor discomfort soon escalated into something far more ominous, casting a ghostly shadow over her last days. These eerie indicators were merely the prelude, foreshadowing the dark and tragic fate that awaited her. Born around 1520, Barbara was the daughter of the influential politician Jerzy Radziwiłł and his wife, also named Barbara, in the beautiful yet often perilous Duchy of Lithuania. From her earliest moments, she was immersed in wealth, power, and immense privilege. Life was an unending display of luxury and indulgence. The finest silks, the most lavish banquets, and all the adoration a young girl could wish for. No one ever denied little Barbara anything, and as she matured, so did her ability to shape the world to her desires. Whether it was a toy, a jewel, or a mere whim, Barbara always managed to obtain what she wanted. Yet even in such a privileged existence, her true power stemmed not from her riches, but from her renowned beauty. While other girls navigated the awkwardness of youth, Barbara blossomed like an exotic flower. Her skin was delicate and pale, almost glowing in the dim candlelight, and her deep, dark eyes seemed to harbor secrets that remained elusive. Her beauty became her instrument, attracting admirers and whispers wherever she went. However, with beauty came peril, and those same enchanting eyes would soon attract the wrong kind of attention. By 1536, Barbara, still in her teenage years, was a blossoming rose among thorns, when a wealthy nobleman named Stanisławas Goštautas set his sights on her. He appeared to be the ideal suitor, rich, powerful, and connected to some of the most prominent families in the land. Any family would have been delighted, but Barbara's circumstances were far from typical. Stanisławas was initially intended to marry Barbara's elder sister Anna. The families had arranged everything, the agreements were made, and the wedding was supposed to solidify their alliance. Yet fate sometimes intervenes unexpectedly. Perhaps Anna did not suit Stanisławas' taste, or perhaps Barbara's allure was simply too potent. Regardless, Stanisławas made a choice that would reverberate through both families. He terminated his engagement with Anna, discarding the older sister in favor of the younger, more beautiful Barbara. It was a scandalous act, a breach of honor rarely forgiven. To offend one, Radziwiłł was to offend them all, creating a tangible tension at family gatherings, a chill that no amount of wealth could alleviate. But as much as Barbara's beauty garnered admirers, it also brought complications. Even as Stanisławas was securing her hand, Barbara was deeply involved in negotiations. She was not content to simply wait. Her options were numerous, and she was not hesitant to explore them. However, when those negotiations fell through, she redirected her attention to Stanisławas. It was not the romantic whirlwind one might envision. It was a match born of circumstance rather than affection. The thrill of youth was tempered by the calculations of power. Barbara might have been young, but she was already engaged in a perilous game, one that would challenge her ability to navigate the treacherous waters of wealth, beauty, and power. On May 18, 1537, Barbara wed Stanisławas in an opulent ceremony. She brought with her a dowry that included 24 fine horses and chests filled with luxurious satin and damask gowns. It was the dream wedding for many girls of that era, but Barbara's happiness was short-lived. Despite being married for 4 years, Barbara and Stanisławas remained childless. At that time, the absence of children was a significant issue, and people began to speculate. Historians now believe they have some explanations, but back then, it was a source of mounting anxiety. In December of 1542, Barbara's life took a tragic turn. Following a brief but devastating illness, Stanisławas died. To compound matters, Barbara's wealth was seized by the King of Poland, Sigismund the Old, as she had no children to inherit it. However, when one door closes, another often opens. Just a year later, in October 1543, the king dispatched his son, Prince Sigismund, to Barbara's residence to claim her estate. Instead, something wholly unforeseen occurred. The young prince fell deeply in love with the beautiful widow, initiating an alleged legendary affair. But there was a significant obstacle. Prince Sigismund was already married. His wife, Elizabeth of Austria, was a prominent figure in Europe and was not inclined to let her husband be swayed by a mistress. Yet Barbara remained unconcerned, biding her time and waiting for fate to unfold. To Sigismund, Barbara was irresistible. His lawful wife, Elizabeth, was serious, meek, and not particularly attractive to him. He soon began to neglect his husbandly duties in favor of Barbara. Sigismund was not exactly a Prince Charming, at least not to his wife. When Elizabeth of Austria was diagnosed with epilepsy, Sigismund displayed little compassion for her suffering. His coldness would eventually lead to dire consequences. As Elizabeth's epilepsy worsened, Sigismund grew more distant, ultimately abandoning her. Instead of caring for his ailing wife, Sigismund journeyed to Krakow to secure her dowry. Indeed, he was more interested in her finances than her well-being. In June 1545, after 2 years of Barbara and Sigismund's affair, Elizabeth experienced her most severe seizure yet. Alone and nearly friendless, Elizabeth died at the age of 18. This was a devastating tragedy, but for Barbara, it presented an opportunity. Barbara and Sigismund's affair was anything but discreet. While others might have waited for things to settle, they flaunted their love openly. It wasn't long before the entire court became aware of their clandestine meetings and extravagant parties. Sigismund, driven by his passion, went to great lengths to be with Barbara. Rumors circulated that the crown prince had constructed a secret tunnel linking his residence to Radziwiłł Palace, where Barbara resided with her mother. This allowed Sigismund to visit her as frequently as he desired, sustaining their love regardless of obstacles. Barbara shared Sigismund's passion for hunting, but the couple took their hobbies to another level. Court records indicate that in 1546, Sigismund spent an astonishing 223 days hunting. However, the game was not the only thing he pursued. Barbara herself was not power-hungry, but her family certainly was. 2 of her relatives, Mikołaj the Black and Mikołaj the Red, were key figures in the Polish court. Their influence propelled Barbara into the limelight, yet this rise to prominence would also mark the beginning of her eventual downfall. As Barbara's relationship with Sigismund deepened, she acquired a formidable enemy. Sigismund's mother, Queen Bona Sforza, despised Barbara, viewing her as a scheming upstart. Sigismund showered her with gifts to keep her content, and whenever Barbara sat for portraits, she insisted on wearing large, ornate necklaces made from precious pearls. These portraits would serve as a testament to her royal connection. Queen Bona was relentless. She knew precisely how to undermine Barbara's reputation. Convincing powerful nobles in court, Bona disseminated rumors that Barbara had employed witchcraft to ensnare Sigismund. With the court on her side, Bona initiated her campaign to sever the couple's ties. The queen's vendetta extended even further. Bona alleged that Barbara's first husband had not died of natural causes, but that she had poisoned him. These accusations only intensified the growing mistrust surrounding Barbara. Bona's scheme was effective for a time. With Sigismund's family now questioning Barbara, they began searching for a suitable bride to replace her. European princesses were considered as potential candidates for the crown prince. The strain of this ordeal weighed heavily on Barbara. Yet Barbara and Sigismund would not be easily separated. In the summer of 1547, they secretly wed. The ceremony was so clandestine that no one knows the exact location or date. It was an impetuous decision, but their love left them little choice. However, some believed that Barbara's family might have coerced Sigismund into the marriage. Rumors circulated that her relatives had caught them in a compromising situation and compelled the prince to formalize their union. Another rumor suggested that Barbara might have been pregnant, prompting Sigismund to legitimize their child. When news of the marriage reached the royal family, chaos ensued. Queen Bona was furious, and the Polish parliament was equally incensed. Sigismund had not sought their permission to marry, and the repercussions were severe. Barbara's personal tragedies compounded her public ones. Shortly after their marriage, Sigismund sent Barbara to rest in a small Lithuanian town. It was intended to be a period of tranquility, but disaster struck. Barbara suffered a miscarriage during her journey. Her attendants reported seeing her bleed through her garments, but the actual cause might have been even more sinister. Barbara had long struggled with stomach ailments. Some historians suggest that the bleeding was not from a miscarriage at all, but rather from a ruptured abscess in her stomach. It was a clear indication that something was gravely amiss. Barbara's health was deteriorating, and her story was far from concluded. Barbara's misfortunes did not cease after her marriage. For months, she was public enemy number one in Poland. The nobility employed some truly underhanded tactics to tarnish her reputation. Cruel rumors spread that she was merely a promiscuous courtesan, and pamphlets mocking her were circulated throughout the streets. Despite everything, Barbara was largely unaware of what was to come. Her fate was still unraveling, piece by piece. On April 1st, 1548, a momentous event transpired when Sigismund's father passed away. This event made Sigismund the new king of Poland and Barbara the presumptive queen consort. What should have been a joyous occasion quickly turned sour. Instead of celebration, Barbara was met with dread. The Polish parliament did not want her to ascend the throne, and they threatened to revolt. Suddenly, Sigismund faced a decision that could alter everything. But no matter how weighty the decision, he stood by her, refusing to forsake his love. The kingdom of Poland descended into chaos, yet Sigismund remained steadfast. His devotion to Barbara was unwavering, and in a remarkable gesture, he contemplated relinquishing the throne altogether to remain by her side. He was not about to let anyone separate them. As the kingdom's nobles sought a resolution, they proposed a compromise. Barbara could remain Sigismund's wife, but without receiving an official coronation, never to be titled Queen of Poland. This offer was presented to them, but it was promptly rejected. Barbara was resolute in her determination to wear that crown. Nothing could deter her from achieving that objective. Then tragedy struck. While she confronted the challenges of court and the nobles, Barbara was also grappling with personal grief. A brief pregnancy culminated in another agonizing miscarriage. His commitment knew no bounds, even extending to banishing his own mother, Queen Bona, to ensure she did not interfere. At last, after all the turmoil and upheaval, Sigismund's endeavors bore fruit. In December 1550, Barbara was crowned Queen of Poland. This moment was one of triumph, a culmination of their years of struggle. The coronation was nothing short of spectacular. Barbara ensured she arrived in style, her court portrait depicting her in elaborate robes adorned with jewels, a symbol of her newfound power. Yet little did she know her tenure as queen would be fleeting. Even as Barbara relished her elevated status, her vanity was evident. Unlike others of her time who seldom bathed, she maintained a keen interest in beauty trends, using face powders and perfumes. Ironically, these very products might have contributed to her declining health. The zenith of Barbara's life coincided with its impending collapse. Shortly after her coronation, her health took a drastic turn for the worse. Her stomach pains intensified, fever set in, and she lost her appetite. These concerning symptoms only exacerbated as her body began to betray her. Alone in her bed, she concealed a terrifying secret. A lump began to develop on her stomach, filled with pus. This marked the commencement of her final days. Sigismund never abandoned her side. Even as Barbara's illness progressed, he remained by her, growing weaker, attending to her even when her body began to fail in the most gruesome ways. Nothing could diminish his devotion. He had sacrificed everything for her, even at his own peril. Sigismund could not accept Barbara's fate as long as she was still breathing. Desperate, he sought to take her south to the Polish town of Niepołomice, where the climate was milder. However, Barbara was already so close to death's door that she could not even rise from her bed. Thus, Sigismund, in his desperation, had to devise creative solutions. Unwilling to concede defeat, Sigismund's denial took a tragic turn. First, he commissioned a special wagon capable of transporting Barbara out of the castle while she lay down. But upon discovering that one of the castle gates was too narrow for the custom wagon to pass through, Sigismund did not hesitate. He simply had it demolished. Regrettably, none of his efforts proved fruitful. Barbara never made it out of the castle alive. Yet at the very end, Barbara secured her final triumph. In March 1551, she received a letter from her mother-in-law, Bona Sforza. The letter's contents were nothing short of heart-wrenching. Bona officially recognized Barbara's marriage to her son and finally acknowledged her as the Queen of Poland. It was Barbara's ultimate triumphant victory. On May 8, 1551, a mere 5 months after her coronation, Barbara succumbed to her enigmatic illness. She passed away at the tender age of 30. Sigismund was beyond devastated with grief. He accompanied Barbara's coffin on foot throughout the entire journey to her final resting place. Yet even after her death, Barbara had more secrets to unveil. Even in death, Barbara's regal status was unmistakable. Sigismund ensured that his wife went to the grave with priceless artifacts. She was interred with a silver crown, a scepter, and a golden orb. Alongside these symbols of power, Barbara also wore a gold necklace and a ring inlaid with rubies and emeralds, which Sigismund had gifted her during their life together. Barbara's demise ignited rampant speculation. At the time, an Italian cardinal even asserted that she had died due to the improper use of contraception. Meanwhile, members of her own family whispered about a sexually transmitted disease. However, the truth, as modern historians believe, is far more tragic. Barbara likely died from cervical or ovarian cancer. Her excruciating miscarriages and the mysterious illness that ravaged her body align with these diseases' symptoms. But no one could have comprehended that then. Sigismund's love for Barbara is often perceived as a grand romance, yet the letters they exchanged reveal a more unsettling dynamic. From the outset, Sigismund exerted control over Barbara, dictating whom she could communicate with. He even forbade her from writing to her own brother, compelling Barbara to contact him covertly. Their love letters unveil something even more chilling. Barbara frequently positioned herself as Sigismund's most humble and insignificant servant, while in one surviving letter, Sigismund admonishes her for not employing the proper royal we when writing to him. Behind the fairy tale of their romance, a much darker reality lurked. Barbara's ascent to the throne was both triumphant and tragic, a moment of victory swiftly overshadowed by her impending doom. The woman who had defied convention, endured slander, and fought fiercely for her love, now found herself at the mercy of an illness that no wealth or power could cure. Her beauty, once her greatest weapon, was fading, replaced by a ghostly pallor. Once radiant and commanding, she now lay in bed, helpless as her body withered away. Sigismund, the man who had risked everything for her, was inconsolable. He refused to leave her side, pleading with healers, searching for any remedy that might save her. Yet his devotion could not alter fate. Barbara, once the dazzling and defiant queen, succumbed to her affliction on May 8, 1551, just months after her coronation. Her passing left Poland in mourning, but none grieved more deeply than Sigismund. His love for her had been unwavering, and now in the silence of their chambers, he was left alone with nothing but the memories of the woman he had fought so desperately to keep. Even in death, Barbara's story did not end. Suspicion lingered, whispers of poisoning refusing to fade. When her body was exhumed centuries later, historians and scientists sought to uncover the truth. The examination revealed traces of heavy metals, lending credence to the theory of slow poisoning. Whether accidental or intentional remains a mystery. Barbara Radziwiłł's legacy endures, woven into the fabric of Polish and Lithuanian history. She was a woman who lived on her own terms, refusing to be a pawn in a world dominated by men. Though her reign was brief, her story remains immortal, a tale of passion, power, and the haunting price of ambition. Today, she is remembered not only as a queen, but as a symbol of resilience, beauty, and tragedy, a woman whose life and death continue to captivate those who seek to uncover the truth behind her untimely demise. If you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Lastly, if you wish to see more videos on historical figures, please subscribe to the channel.